The Las Vegas murder that remained a mystery for 20 years. A silent night, a terrifying end. December 29th, 2005. Las Vegas, Nevada. For most people, the name Las Vegas evokes images of bright neon lights, bustling streets, and a city that never sleeps. However, on one quiet night in that very city, a crime occurred that would baffle investigators for nearly 2 decades. That night, no one could have imagined that a man would be found dead in his apartment, and that it would take nearly 20 years to identify his killer. The victim's name was Daniel Zeisler. He was living his daily life. When he could not be reached, concern grew. After some time, an attempt was made to reach his apartment, and the scene inside left everyone in shock. Daniel was found lifeless. An initial examination revealed that his throat had been constricted with a telephone cord. Some items in the apartment were out of place, and his car was missing. The police immediately cordoned off the area and summoned the forensic team. Investigators knew that the hours following a murder are the most critical. They collected every possible piece of evidence from the crime scene: fingerprints, biological samples, photographs, and anything that could later help solve the mystery. A few days later, a major lead emerged. Daniel's car was found far from the state of Nevada, in Memphis, Tennessee. This was highly unusual. If the killer only wanted to steal the car, why would they feel the need to take it so far away? Some evidence was recovered from the vehicle, including DNA. At the time, investigators were confident that this very piece of evidence would lead them to the killer. But when that DNA was compared against the national database of the time, no results were found. This was the moment the investigation effectively stalled. Months passed, then years. Every new tip was checked, every possible lead was pursued, but no evidence led to the killer. Gradually, this case was added to those files commonly referred to as cold cases, cases where investigations remain open, but no effective new leads are found. Many began to believe that this murder would never be solved, but they did not know that in the coming years, forensic science would advance so significantly that the same old DNA, which had lain silent for years, would one day bring this mystery back to life. And that was the turning point where a nearly 20-year-old case was reopened. When the old file was reopened, years had passed. Many people had forgotten the case, but Daniel Zeisler's name remained in the police records. A file kept in storage, a few photos, forensic reports, and that DNA sample, which had been useless years ago, remained preserved. Investigators knew that science was advancing every year. Questions that were unanswerable in 2005 might finally have answers in 2024. With this hope, the case was reopened. This time, modern forensic technology was used alongside traditional investigation. The old DNA sample was reanalyzed. It was the same sample that had not matched any suspect years prior. This time, the method was different. Instead of searching directly for a criminal, experts attempted to identify a suspect through familial connections. This method is called forensic genetic genealogy, which has played a crucial role in solving many cold cases in the United States in recent years. It was not an easy task. Experts meticulously analyzed thousands of records, family trees, and various pieces of information. After months of hard work, one name began to appear repeatedly. For the first time, investigators had a person of interest who could be seriously looked into. But a name alone was not enough. They reviewed the person's old movements, residences, potential connections, and the circumstances of 2005. Each new piece of information was cross-referenced with existing evidence to ensure there were no mistakes. As the investigation progressed, the old evidence began to connect. The car being found in Memphis, the DNA sample, and other available information all pointed in the same direction. Now, the police were almost certain they were on the right path. But there was one more surprising twist left in this story. When investigators reached the suspect, they discovered that he had passed away years earlier, in 2020. This news was unexpected. The person it took nearly 20 years to reach could never stand trial in a court of law. Nevertheless, the police re-examined all the evidence to ensure the conclusion was solid and scientifically grounded. According to them, the available evidence pointed toward this individual, even though his death made it impossible to prosecute him. This case left an important question behind. When investigators reopened the old case file, they weren't just looking at a murder. They were looking at a question that had been waiting for justice for nearly 2 decades. Daniel Zeisler's life ended in 2005, but the mystery of his murder remained unsolved. This time, the police looked at every small piece of evidence from a new angle. They knew that modern forensic science could uncover not only new cases, but also secrets from years ago. Experts analyzed the old DNA samples repeatedly. Various records were compared, family connections were verified, and every possible scientific method was employed. Ultimately, all paths ended at the same person. Although that person had passed away, the available evidence forced investigators to conclude that he was the likely perpetrator. While this result could not take the form of a traditional trial in court because the suspect was not alive, it was a major breakthrough for the police. The file, which had been closed for nearly 20 years, finally reached a logical conclusion. This case highlighted one truth: a criminal always leaves some mark at the scene. Sometimes that mark is not immediately understood, but time, technology, and persistent research turn it into vital evidence. Today, many old murder cases around the world are being reopened. Evidence that was once considered meaningless is now telling a new story with the help of modern science. Daniel Zeisler's case became one of those examples. This wasn't just a murder case, it was proof that while justice may be delayed, sometimes the truth comes to light even after many years. Although the stage of sentencing could not be reached in this case, the actual goal for the investigators was to reach the truth, and according to them, that goal was achieved. Perhaps that is why this case is still mentioned today as a successful example of forensic science and modern DNA research. But the most important lesson of this story is not just about a murder or a killer. The real lesson is that evidence is not always destroyed by the passage of time. Sometimes it remains silent until science gives it the opportunity to speak again. This is why, even today, work continues on hundreds of cold cases in the United States, and every year, many cases once thought to be impossible are being solved. Perhaps the next case, currently sitting as a file in an old cabinet, will be solved tomorrow with the help of modern technology, and perhaps another family, after years of waiting, will finally know what really happened to their loved one.